Timbuktu, City of Gold. I heard when I was a child one phrase over and over again, a very popular phrase, although the first half of the sentence was different almost every time. The second half of the phrase was the exact same, from here to Timbuktu. Upon learning about Timbuktu, I was shocked when I heard in a video on YouTube that people in North Africa actually died while traveling through the desert trying to reach this infamous city. I would like my readers to understand the magnitude of the importance of this city, how it got to be so rich, and the influence the city has even till this very day, and most for all to know the name of the richest man to ever walk the face of the earth, the King of Timbuktu. This article describes what is seen going to Timbuktu, for it is indeed an exceptional experience. On the southern edge of the Sahara Desert, north of the river Niger, a city of beige towers and dusty roads appears out of the sand. Its reputation is heavy with the weight of nearly a millennium's worth of history. For centuries it's been blessed, and cursed, by rumors of being a hidden paradise. Boysonold. Par 1. With such a reputation, is it a wonder why people would risk it all to get there? Tales riddle the known world about Timbuktu and the wonders therein. It's like the United States is today to the majority of the Third World. As the article goes on to state, by the early 1300s, Timbuktu belonged to the Empire of Mali and was truly prospering. People came from across the continent. Boysonold. Part 2. Obviously people came looking for something, and the most important thing about this trip is to understand that the Sahara is one of the most unforgiving deserts on earth, and some people didn't make it, though many people were willing to take the trek across the desert to get there, which to me seems incredible. With a history dating back to before the 1100s AD, the city was a nomadic resting place in the middle of the desert, a haven where desert dwellers can go and get water and trade things. There was a good reason for the reputation that Timbuktu had. The reason shocked even me. How could something so simple create one of the richest places to ever exist? Salt. That's right, just salt. Mainly the nomads came to trade. They traded gold for salt. Founded sometime before 1100 AD, Timbuktu quickly grew from a seasonal camp for storing salt and other goods to a major center for caravan trade. Travelers coming from the west brought gold to trade for salt from mines to the east. Some of these travelers chose to make the location their permanent dwelling, and before long the town became a city. By the early 1300s, Timbuktu belonged to the Empire of Mali and was truly prospering. People came from across the continent. Boysonold. Part 2. Timbuktu's location, other than the salt, was an important point where the rivers met the desert, or as they said in this article, where the camel meets the canoe. Timbuktu. Gold came from the south, the salt from the north, and divine knowledge from Timbuktu. Timbuktu is also the crossroad where the camel met the canoe. TimbuktuHeritage.org. Par 4. This locale provided the perfect soil for the affluent city to grow. With word of mouth, it didn't take forever for important, well-off people and people who wanted to become well-off to be attracted to the city. People came from everywhere for a multitude of reasons to partake. The prosperity of the city attracted Africans and Arabs who were both scholars and merchants. This unique combination of scholarship and business were the cornerstones that made Timbuktu a city of wealth and truth, and therefore a booming desert port. TimbuktuHeritage.org. Par 5. They carried gold from the further south to trade in the city, and one person became known as the richest man to ever live. By the time of his rule, he inherited an empire, not just a city. It spanned from the Atlantic Ocean all the way to modern-day Niger, some 2,000 miles. Under his rule, the Kingdom of Mali grew significantly. He annexed 24 cities, including Timbuktu. The kingdom stretched for about 2,000 miles, from the Atlantic Ocean all the way to modern-day Niger, taking in parts of what are now Senegal, Mauritania, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, the Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea and Ivory Coast. Muhammad. Par 3. Muhammad picked. Par 3. The empire grew by conquering other lands, and gold was flowing in the entire time. And according to this article by Naima Muhammad, there was even speculation by Ivan van Sertima that their citizens may have reached as far as South America. But the report makes it clear that there is no proof of this. According to 14th century Syrian historian Shibab al-Umari, Abu Bakr was obsessed with the Atlantic Ocean and what lay beyond it. He reportedly embarked on an expedition with a fleet of 2,000 ships and thousands of men, women and slaves. They sailed off, never to return. Some like the late American historian Ivan van Sertima, entertain the idea that they reached South America, but there is no evidence of this. Muhammad Part 2, the richest man to ever live, of course, name is Mansa Musa. Name goes on to talk about the amount of gold Mansa actually amassed, and according to historians his wealth was half of the gold in the world at the time, making his net worth just about incalculable. With such a large land mass came great resources such as gold and salt. During the reign of Mansa Musa, the Empire of Mali accounted for almost half of the old world's gold, according to the British Museum, and all of it belonged to the King Muhammad IV. The richest man in the world who commanded a golden empire was not that well known to the people of the Middle East and beyond, until one day Mansa Musa decided to go on a pilgrimage to Mecca and also to shop in Egypt. Talk about traveling in style. Though the Empire of Mali was home to so much gold, the kingdom itself was not well known. This changed when Mansa Musa, a devout Muslim, decided to go on a pilgrimage to Mecca, passing through the Sahara Desert and Egypt. The king reportedly left Mali with a caravan of 60,000 men. He took his entire royal court and officials, soldiers, griots, entertainers, merchants, camel drivers and 12,000 slaves, as well as a long train of goats and sheep for food. It was a city moving through the desert, a city whose inhabitants, all the way down to the slaves, were clad in gold brocade and finest Persian silk. 100 camels were in tow, each camel carrying hundreds of pounds of pure gold. Muhammad Part 5. His name topped a list in this article of the 10 richest men to ever live. They described his wealth as incomprehensible, meaning the human brain can't imagine the type of wealth he had, which is incredible to say the least. In a YouTube video I watched while researching this topic, they said that after he was done trading gold for goods in other towns and provinces, the price of gold would drop in those towns and provinces because he left so much there. The wealth is only one part of the story. The city was also rich in knowledge, for scholars were attracted to the city, such as the aforementioned Abu Bakr, who stayed in the city studying and writing for 30 years. In the mid-16th century, Muhammad Abu Bakr al-Wangari, an Islamic scholar from the town of Jenne, migrated north to Timbuktu, then a city of perhaps 100,000 and a religious, educational and trading center, and founded the University of Sankore, a loose affiliation of mosques and private homes that provided subsidized instruction to thousands of students. During the next 30 years, al-Wangari amassed handwritten books on subjects ranging from history to poetry to astronomy, from both Timbuktu and other parts of the Islamic world. Hammer Part 4. Historians swear by these books, and according to Mr. Hammer, the person who wrote the piece, they are among Africa's greatest secrets. For centuries, manuscripts such as these remain some of Africa's best-kept secrets. Western explorers who passed through Timbuktu in the early 1800s, some disguised as Muslim pilgrims, made no mention of them. Hammer Part 6. In other words, they remain undisclosed because no one talked about them. The citizens of Timbuktu were determined to keep their most prized possession, which was their books. They did everything they could to prevent tragedy from befalling the knowledge. Living close to the water meant occasional flooding, but they took preventative measure to stop the threatening situation. 7 years ago, heavy rains caused the Niger to overflow its banks. The worst flood in decades swept through Timbuktu, destroying 200 houses and many valuable works, whose treasures include a priceless illuminated Quran made in Ceuta, Andalusia. In 1198, we put bags of sand around the house, and we saved it from collapse. I was told by the library's creator, we could have lost everything. Hammer Part 22. These are real accounts written by Mr. Hammer to show the loyalty these people had for the knowledge they gathered, and they knew how important it was for future generations to read. Obviously some of the richest and most knowledgeable people in the world. Timbuktu remained till this day a description for some far-off, almost mythical place. According to Wikipedia, the place still guards and protects knowledge, saying that the city fell but the information did not. Hundreds of thousands of manuscripts were collected in Timbuktu over the course of centuries. Some were written in the town itself, others, including exclusive copies of the Quran for wealthy families, imported through the lively book trade, hidden in cellars or buried, hid between the mosque's mud walls and safeguarded by their patrons. Many of these manuscripts survived the city's decline. They now form the collection of several libraries in Timbuktu. holding up to 700,000 manuscripts. In late January 2013, it was reported that rebel forces destroyed many of the manuscripts before leaving the city. However, there was no malicious destruction of any library or collection, as most of the manuscripts were safely hidden away. One librarian in particular, Abdel Qadir Haidara, organized to have 350,000 medieval manuscripts smuggled out of Timbuktu for safekeeping. Wikipedia Par 41. A city with such a rich, literally and figuratively, background would have some sort of pride associated with their name and actions, such as described in this paper. I understand salt was the main reason for the wealth, and Timbuktu must have had the monopoly. Thank you for watching, and please, like and subscribe.